'Cause there's you and me, and all other people with nothing to do, nothing to prove. And that's you and me, and all other people, and I don't know why I can't keep my eyes off of you.
And radio style. How's everyone doing out there? I've been having some odd issues with my board, so I'm just going to have to try to make the best of all of this. Hopefully everyone's doing good, though. A different kind of show today, as probably many of you can tell by the title. And honestly, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to admit it. A couple things, I guess, I'm going to admit on this particular moment, if you will. This show is probably not going to grab a lot of people's attentions as far as the name of it. Parts of the whole. And that's really what it's about. But that's not saying anything, right? I'm going to talk 15 minutes about parts of the whole. So obviously, I'm going to talk like 12 minutes about parts of the whole, and I'm going to yammer for about 3. But parts of the whole has to do with kind of the bigger picture. It has to do with how we tend to, as a group of people, as a personal, myself, I do this all the time, but how we oftentimes tend to look at things in a very, very myopic kind of way. Or very much like we're looking through a microscope. Now, I also want to say one other aspect to this. This show is like many things I do. So there's a lot of things I know I could do to probably get this show to have a larger reach. And ultimately, that is not why I'm doing this. Well, and I've told a lot of people, the reason I'm primarily doing this is it keeps me in practice with this whole speaking thing, with the fact that I like to do more voiceover. Got myself a home studio, gives me an excuse to buy some equipment. I'm having a good time. I'm enjoying this. It's something I focus on. I've always been very involved with helping people spiritually. I've had a number of students through the years, and it's usually a very one-on-one, 2, 3, 4-on-1 type thing. There's not a lot of people generally involved. So I've not generally had this very large audience, if you will, that I'm trying to shoot for. So it's kind of different for me. And generally, as a teacher, I didn't really give a crud how many students I had, and I actually had a teacher, or kind of more of a girlfriend's mom at the point in the past, but she was a big, big part of my development, who I became. But she was always kind of sort of braggy, and I don't mean to put her down. I don't mean it like that, but she was a little more in her ego when she was dealing with being a teacher, and she frequently would try to talk about how many students she had and all this kind of stuff. She had a bumper sticker that says, "I teach Reiki," and all these weird things, and I guess to each his own. I just very much believe that's not kind of how this works. I know people that have charged for doing readings and teachings and all these things. I'm not cool with that either. I believe this is kind of one of the things that I've come here to do. And to charge people for it, it really kind of detracts or takes away from the very concept of what it means and what it's about. So I've always been kind of against that, just always. As a general rule, there might be places down the road where I maybe, who knows, might end up making money on this kind of concept. But frankly, I doubt it. I don't. My level of comfort in that regards is minimal. So again, I don't care who finds my message. What I do care is those that are seeking this information. Here is a place you can find it. That is seriously entirely what I do this for. If I have only 17 subscribers for the end of time, or I lose 5 of them, or maybe I pick up a couple here and there, then so be it. That is what it is. It's okay. I do this because I love doing this. It's fun. I enjoy helping, and really seriously, if I help one person with each show, if one person's life is somewhat moved or improved, or one person gets something out of my show, then it was worth it. Like that one person would have been sitting in my family room here, or my little entertainment room, if you will, and we would have been chit-chatting, and she would have walked away, or he would have walked away feeling differently about their lives and uplifted, and life would be groovy. Seriously. So I say all that because that is truly kind of part of this whole story. Yeah? No, I did that on purpose. So again, we're going to work through all this the best I can. This was truly inspired. Well, okay, sorry, business. Got to get into business. Dan Radio Style is the show, or the channel, I should say. So please subscribe if you haven't already. If you've somehow found this show and you haven't subscribed, please do. I always appreciate subscribers, and I see that little number. I actually look at it from a somewhat regular basis. And also, email me. I haven't gotten a lot of emails. I've got a couple, and I'm probably going to actually spin those into a show here, maybe on my next one. But please contact me at spiritradiodanstyle@gmail.com. It's also in the link below. So please, do that and ask questions or whatever you want. It's kind of cool. I'm here to help in any way I can. And of course, it's my perspective. So never ever think of me as some sort of weird guru or somebody that knows anything. I just been practicing this stuff for a long time, so I'm kind of good at it. I'll give you that. But outside of that, it is what it is, man. So it's all good. Okay, business out of the way. Let's get into the crux of the matter. Yes, indeedy. Parts of the whole. So what kind of inspired this is I was listening to, there's a philosopher I've been kind of digging onto lately. I've read some of his books. I've been listening to some of his YouTube stuff, audio stuff. The guy's dead, so it's not really him recording YouTube. In fact, YouTube came well after him, but there's people that have taken audio tapes and recorded them, I guess is probably a better way, or digitize them. There we go. That's the proper way to say this. And I've put them online, and they're pretty cool. So Alan Watts is a really groovy philosopher, talks a lot of stuff, had a background in religion and major philosophy and Zen and Tao and Hindu and Buddhism. These guys just covers everything. So it's pretty groovy. He's got a lot of cool stuff he talks about. But he had mentioned one small part in a really long, it was like 50 minutes of stuff I was listening to, which was fascinating. I don't even want to try to get into any of the other stuff. But one part of it that really got me thinking about this concept was looking at a picture in a newspaper with a microscope. And you will see just the dots, and they're going to be in some sort of pattern that makes really no sense, right? If you take a picture of a newspaper and put it under a microscope, all you're going to see is the teeny tiny little dots and just the small little spot that you're looking at. But if you back away, you actually see the picture. You see a face, or you see whatever the heck it is. And of course, it truly is what inspired this entire show. The concept, the forest through the trees, was really one of the first things that came to me through that. And I've used that term many, many, many times. And really, for a second, I kind of want you guys to think about it for a moment. That's a very powerful phrase. It seems stupid. We throw it around, it's like you can't see the forest through the trees. We throw it around like it's nothing, right? Like it's like a bunch of words thrown together that means absolutely nothing. But if you really think about it for half a second, it means everything. It truly is the purpose and point of this whole show, parts of the whole. So you put yourself in a forest. I think most of us have probably been in a forest. If you haven't, I'm sorry. You should try it. It's really cool. Forests are really neat. You should check it out sometime. But if you get into a forest, you'll notice you're looking around. You're like, wow, a lot of trees. There's usually some ivy or ferns or a lot of leaves on the ground and bark and different kind of stuff. Maybe some critters here and there. But you see a lot of trees all about. Like everywhere you look, there's trees, right? You see trees everywhere. But you don't see the forest. You just see the trees. You see the aspect that you're focused on, the aspect that you're part of, the little microcosm that you've somehow sunk yourself into. That's what you see. You don't actually see the bigger picture, right? You don't see everything else. So that's kind of the point, is when you back away from that spot that you're at inside that forest, right, where you're just seeing the trees, and you back out like a satellite view, right? You come up and you're 1,000 feet away. Now all of a sudden you see thousands of trees. You see the forest. You see the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is something that many of us need to stop and realize we're a part of. I think we lose track so frequently, and we get lost in the little minutia, the small parts of things. We're looking at the little teeny tiny part that we're affected by, and we forget that there is a larger picture. To cover a couple more things, and then I'll get into some better real-life kind of concepts. Parts of the atom, right? There's, like I've said, quarks and gluons and all these different kinds of things that make up parts of the electron and the proton and the neutron. And then those are the little tiny, teeny pieces of the atom itself, right? So now you got a teeny, tiny atom. We got a carbon atom, right? But what really matters is when you get thousands and thousands and millions of atoms together, now all of a sudden you have a table. Now all of a sudden you have a tree. Now all of a sudden you have a rock, right? That in our minds in our lives is what actually matters. The atom is very, very insignificant, really, in the big picture. Unless you're into that kind of thing, sure. Or unless there's really, you're trying to understand in a deeper concept or deeper meaning what that really, how these things tie together. But ultimately, it's a table, it's a tree, it's a person, right? We're made up of millions and billions of atoms. So really, the teeny tiny little atom doesn't matter. It's the compilation. It's the bigger picture. It's the fact that there's a larger amount of them that really brings some power to that whole. Water molecule is another great example, right? A water molecule, it's H2O. There's there's an oxygen and two hydrogens. They come at funky angles, kind of gives it this, what they call polarity. I can't. I'm hydrogen bonding. Thank you. Where there's like a negative side and a positive side, and that's actually how it kind of. Anyway, too much stuff. Who gives a crap, right? Who cares about that stuff? Nah. But whatever the case is, we got hydrogen and two of them and an oxygen. And that's a hydrogen molecule, or a water molecule. Fantastic, great, woo, groovy. But when you get zillions of these, trillions of them, and you take them over years and years and years, and you run them down the same course for years and years and years, you end up with the Grand Canyon. Seriously, carved out by water, right? One single water molecule is nothing. You get trillions and trillions and trillions of them over time. Suddenly you have one of the most beautiful canyons on the planet that are created by that very same thing. So I want to kind of get into how this affects us on personal levels, because every single one of us gets in that point of life where it's all about us. And oh man, I'll be the first to throw my hand up, because there honestly, and maybe I'll do another show on this, there is a place for where it is kind of all about us. And I've said in other shows, what you notice, what you pay attention to, what you focus on, it is for you. Okay? Completely you. 100% you. So there is the aspect, and it's very important, just like the water molecule is very important. If it wasn't the way it was, if it didn't have those two hydrogens sticking off and the one oxygen sticking on the bottom, having those positives and negatives the way it does, it would not interact the way it does. It would not carve out stuff. In fact, if you had a river of oil, it would likely not create the Grand Canyon like a river of water. And it's because of the way water is as a molecule that it has that power. So there is something to be said about the parts, the teeny tiny parts. So that is important. I'm not trying to say it isn't, but I'm also trying to get us to understand that there's the whole, and every one of us is a part of that whole. That's also huge. And in fact, in a lot of cases, maybe bigger. It's a big part of why I'm the way I am spiritually, right? Why I'm so involved, because I realize every time I meet somebody, every time something happens in my life, it's my opportunity to interact with the whole. It's my opportunity to help the bigger picture. And I do that consciously. A lot of people don't. And it's not that I'm better or worse. It's not that at all. No. It's just the fact that I'm very conscious of my role in society. I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm a part of other people's lives and that I make a difference. And I try very hard. I even on weekends have a little gig where I work at a coffee shop because it's fun for me to interact with people and to put a smile on their face first thing in the morning and start their day off right. I don't need the money. The money means nothing to me. In fact, I just went and put 5 of the paychecks, and I've been hanging on to paychecks forever. I finally went and put them in the bank because I got tired of them being in my car. It's not, and I'm not bragging. It's not like that. It's just, I do it for fun, right? So we are single people that are a part of a larger purpose. There's what's kind of often called the herd effect, or maybe the crowd effect, and I might be misnaming both of these for that matter, but who knows. But it comes down to the fact when a lot of people get together, suddenly everything starts to change. One person's fine. They might handle a situation fine. You get a bunch of people together, and all of a sudden we got a stampede on our hands. So it's a little freaky. You get in a situation of traffic, right? You can be driving down the freeway here in California especially. Anyone that lives in this area knows for sure what I'm talking about, or on the West Coast in general, because it's very crowded out here. But one person can literally, and this is true, they've done studies on this, one person literally can slam on their brakes on the freeway, right? And then slows down all the traffic behind them, and literally in that same spot for minutes to hours, really, seriously, for many, many, many minutes, probably like 30 minutes or longer. I forget what the study said exactly, but for 30 minutes or longer, people will literally slow down at that spot and then speed back up. And you'll be like driving, you're like, why the hell did we slow down here? It's because some person a while ago slammed on their brakes for whatever reason, and it kind of threw off the whole mojo of the entire column of traffic. It's amazing. I wanted to get into relationships. I'm gonna attempt to go long on this show, so I apologize. This show's going to go a little longer. I finally said, screw it. I'm going to break 15 minutes. We're going to see what happens. But I've had a lot of discussions with a very, very close friend of mine about relationships, and him and I kind of have both focused on aspects of a relationship, how it's affecting us, where we're at in the big picture. And we're speculating maybe on how these other women are involved and what they're going through and all this. But really it's larger than just him and I. It's larger than just our take on the situation. These other people we're involved with have issues, have lives, have bigger pictures that they're dealing with. And we're all trying to interact. It's like circles interacting with other circles. I trying to come up with spirograph was the thing I think we had when we were younger. But for anyone that's younger, much younger than me, you're not going to know what the hell I'm talking about. But it's overlapping circles. It's where the circles start to overlap with each other, create some cool patterns. But ultimately, our lives touch each other. And that's really the big picture. Like, I've got my own version of it. Like, I care about this person, and I'm doing everything I can to do right by them and try to do the right thing and blah, blah, blah. Well, this person's got their own thing that they're working through too, and they care about me, right? So because they care about me, they're attempting to do everything they can, but they have all this drama and stuff going on in their lives, right? So we're attempting to meet in the middle while each one of us has our own circle going on. And it's like gears trying to mesh, right? Like cogs in a machine, right? And we're trying to get these cogs to come together. For anyone that's driven a stick shift, it's like trying to get your gears to mesh, and you slowly pull the clutch out and you try to get things like so they mesh just right so you can move forward. It's the same thing when you're trying to blend two lives, a life that's not used to being with someone else and another life that's not used to being with someone else. And now all of a sudden you're trying to come together to be together, to be with each other. There's a lot of things that have to come into play in that. So relationships can be very, very, very difficult in those regards. And also, conversely, when you've got relationships, for example, that maybe are falling apart, right? Maybe they're going down that path where it's not going to work out any longer. Well, now all of a sudden, you're looking at it like, oh, this is so horrible for me. And a lot of people are very cool like this, especially the ones I know. I don't know if it's just because I tend to hang out with people that are good or whatever, right? And that's a judgment, so I don't mean it like that, but just the fact that they seem to care about other people. But they're like, oh, I feel really bad for my husband or soon-to-be ex-husband or the kids or what's going to happen, or our friends and our neighbors. What are they all going to think? But ultimately, it comes down to there's a bigger picture, right? This change in the relationship, how it's affecting you is huge. It's also going to affect the other party, the other husband, the other wife, whatever it is. It's also going to affect the kids. It's going to affect everybody in their own unique ways. And then on top of that, it's going to affect the relationships and the family as a giant unity, as a whole. One thing that I've always thought was really weird, and I come from a broken relationship, so I'm sure I've got my own slightly slanted view on this, so, take it for a grain of salt, right? But my mom's like she's been through a couple relationships, right? My dad's been in a couple relationships. I'm maybe playing it down a little. And it is what it is, right? But all these things have affected many, many, many lives, and they've played a lot of parts in other people's worlds. And it's very important to understand that each one of us has learned through this whole process. It's the relationships as they break up. These people learn things. They're moving on. They're being challenged. They're growing. They're developing themselves. So it's not like I'm hurting them. I'm hurt. Yeah, of course. But everyone survives through these things, right? Relationships breaking up is very common. I think everybody's been through a breakup at some point. And if you've been through a breakup, maybe you're going through one right now. When you went through one before, it did work out. You fell in love again at some point. It is how it, and you learned from it, right? You learned things you shouldn't do. You learned things you should do. You grew as a person. You became, I don't want to say a better individual, but you did. You became more capable of love. You became more capable of being a parent. All those things. It's the parts of the whole. The whole is kind of what we're all a part of. We're all sharing. And your part is who you are, and we're all developing as individuals, and we're growing and changing as a larger purpose. I'm going to cut this at 20 minutes. I hope everybody's sort of enjoyed. I hope I kind of made sense. Spirit Radio Dan Style. Contact me at spiritradiodanstyle@gmail.com. Thank you so much. We'll do more shows for you guys. I certainly hope you enjoyed this and, hope it means something. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.